Shalom Aleichem. Good day, everyone. This is Minister Uriah Baraka, and I am going to be speaking today from the book of Revelations, chapter 13. The book of Revelations, chapter 13, is actually the revelation of the false doctrine and order of the pagan religion that sometimes and in most cases call themselves Christian. It is not. The basis of this religion is based upon the worship of the image of man, or Elohim, in a form which reflects mortality and not immortality. The beast that rises up out of the sea is a doctrine. It is a doctrine that rises up from the heart of man that is active in Yetzer Hara, or evil inclinations. You can find this in Genesis chapter 6, verse 5. At the heart of man, from the heart of man, there is only evil imaginations and inclinations, continually so. This is the perception and the perspective from the sight of Elohim. This doctrine has become a worldwide phenomenon. It has, over the centuries, since it has been conceived in the world, it has turned the Basara, the gospel of Yeshua HaMashiach, into a doctrine that no longer has the efficacy to bring forth the purification and the sanctification of the heart of man, that he might be able to receive through the promises of the covenant and become a partaker of the divine nature and escape the corruption of this world. The verse that I want to deal with is verse 3 of chapter 13. Now, I have written a book called Mystery of the 666 Revealed. It's featured on our website, mysteriesofthekingdom.messianichebrew.studies.com. You can get the full message by going to this website and ordering you a copy. But for today, we're going to only be dealing with verse 3, where it reads, "And I saw one of its heads as if mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed." Now see also Isaiah 53:5, where it is written, "By his wounds are we healed." In this case, the wound of the Messiah was healed. Understand that. By his wounds we are healed. But in this case, the deadly wound was healed. This is the element of the doctrine of the beast that destroys the true worship of the Father, Yahuwah. Yeshua and all the prophets never came to glorify the image of the human, but rather they came to lead the people into the worship of the one supreme Spirit who created all things. To say that Yeshua of Nazareth, Yeshua according to the flesh, was not Elohim is a truth that is proven in Scripture. Flesh cannot be divine. The Word that is divine was manifested in the flesh, but it did not make the flesh divine. So to say that his spirit was not divine, or the Lamb nature, is a great falsehood. Yeshua, according to the Spirit, was Elohim. But according to the flesh, he was the seed of David, the seed of a mortal man. Yeshua himself is recorded as saying, "Do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father in me? The words that I speak to you, I speak not from self," that is, the nature of the mortal man, "but the Father that dwells in me. He does the work." In this statement, Yeshua was defining to his disciples, Talmudim, that his mortal human body, born of Mary, was not divine, that is, of the Father, Yahuwah. Why? This was meant to prevent his disciples and his followers from worshiping the image of the flesh. This is shown in Romans chapter 1, where it states, concerning his son Yeshua the Messiah, our Adonu, Lord, which was made of the seed of David according to the flesh. So according to the flesh, Yeshua came forth from the seed of David. His flesh did not come forth from the Father. His flesh did not come forth from the divine nature, but it was formulated from the seed of David, from the genetics of David, a mortal man. This shows that Yeshua of Nazareth, according to his human nature, was not divine, but rather of the same carnal nature as his forefather David. Spiritual law teaches us that every seed produces after its own kind. You will find this in Genesis 1:12. Therefore, being called the seed of David implied a fact that the mortal human of Yeshua of Nazareth possessed the inclinations of sin, Yetzer Hara, even as his human ancestor. That is to say that the flesh of Yeshua was kata. It was in a state that did not meet up to the standard of the divine nature, even as any flesh does not meet up to the standard of divine nature. Yeshua of Nazareth possessed the inclination of sin, genetically so, hereditary so, even as human ancestor in the flesh. Let me specify that. In the flesh. This is also in Romans chapter 8, where it says, El, sending his son in the likeness of sinful flesh, that is the seed of David, and for sin in the flesh, condemned sin in the flesh. Does this mean that Yeshua personally sinned? Absolutely not. What it means is that he conquered sin in the flesh through the fulfillment of the righteousness of Torah. How? It was through his obedience to the law and the prophets. Philippians 2:8. It was an obedience that was complete and without error. Now it says in the scriptures of the Hebrew, he became perfect. Hebrews 5:8-9. If Yeshua was already perfect according to the flesh, how did he become perfect through his obedience? That's a contradiction. His flesh was not perfect in the divine nature. He did not come to perfect the flesh in the divine nature. He came to swallow up the flesh, to kill it, to bring its substance and the law of its substance unto death. His flesh possessed inherent evil inclinations, or else he could not have been tempted. You see, yet in spite of this, he overcame all temptations of the flesh and fulfilled, not abolished, the law and the prophets. Saul in chapter 1 again shows this truth, where it says, and declared to be the Son of Elohim with power, according to the Spirit of holiness, by the resurrection from the dead. Romans 1:4. We see here that a transition took place after the resurrection, a transition from the seed of David to the seed son of Elohim. That is, through the resurrection there was a total removal of the nature of the flesh, which possessed inherent evil inclinations, Yetzer Hara. Thus, we must now understand is that Yeshua of Nazareth died on the tree. Greek, staros, tree, wood. But what arose from the dead was Yeshua, the son of El, Yahuwah, and not the divine mortal Jesus that is being raised and have been raised by man for all nations to worship, by wicked man. This is what is meant where it speaks in the Revelation, and I saw one of its heads as if it were wounded to death, the head of the beast, that doctrine of the flesh, the carnal doctrine of man. And I saw one of its heads as if were wounded to death, and his wound was healed. What does it say now? In Isaiah 53:6, it says, by his wounds we are healed. So when they heal up the wound by which our healing comes, then they have healed up our healing. For it is by his wounds that we are healed. But they have healed the fatal wound through which we are healed.